Welcome into episode 233 of the Skate Podcast. I'm Brian DeFelice, joined by Scott McLaughlin. Bridget Prue is not with us today. She's a busy bee and she's working, I believe. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
broadcasting.
she's off to Yale for 2 games this weekend.
Yeah, so she can't join us today, but she'll be back next episode. Um, Last night the Bruins fell to the Anaheim Ducks in overtime. They fall to six. I say fall, but they're now 6-0-1 on the season. Opening shift, Scott.
Clear the puck, just clear the puck. That they had that game literally on their stick, no fewer than a handful of times to get clears, and just couldn't do it. I mean, Charlie Coyle completely whiffs on a clear. Pavel Zacha has like the shift from hell where 3 times in 15 seconds he has the puck. 2 are soft backhanders that easily get picked off. Another one, he holds on to it too long and gets it stripped, and that ends up being like right before the tying goal. So, or right before the 3-2 goal, rather. And then after that, the next shift, David Pastrnak, chance to clear, tries flipping it out, glove down at the line. Hampus Lindholm, 20 seconds left. Hampus Lindholm has it on his stick behind the net, throws it right at Troy Terry. A couple seconds later, Troy Terry's thrown into the front and goes in off Marchand's stick and ties the game. It's one of those things where it's like you almost can't get too mad about it, because it's like, how many times a season are you going to have to worry about like 5 different players having a chance to clear and not being able to do it? But boy, oh boy, does it lead to one frustrating loss for Thursday night.
Yep, absolutely. And, it's kind of like flashbacks to late last spring when you have some late leads and you give them up. But obviously it's a totally different situation. It's a different time of the season, different team, but you have to essentially learn how to close out these games. And you look at the Bruins record this year, last year combined in the regular season. Clearly they know how to do that. So this is a game like last night's an anomaly, at least in the regular season. But yeah, it's just, these guys are too leaned on, too experienced to be faltering like that. For me, Scott, I guess my question is, through the first 7 games of the season, the Bruins are 13th in the league in goals for, and they are 9th in the league in even strength scoring. So they have 18 even strength goals, 4 power play goals. I think their power play is around 16%. And there's a narrative going around out there that the Bruins at 5-on-5 aren't scoring enough or not creating enough. And I think there's some merit to that for sure. But if you actually look at the numbers, I believe, at 16%, they have 18 even strength goals and 4 power play goals, unless it's a shorthanded goal in there somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, I guess my point is, if this Bruins team stays on this trajectory where they're, the top half of the league in goals for and even strength scoring, does this team have enough offense to be a legitimate team in the spring? Because we know how good their defense and goaltending is. So if they're a top half team in the league in scoring, the numbers would suggest that this team can score enough, and that it's kind of the power play that needs to pick up the slack rather than the even strength scoring.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just to dig even further, like if you look at 5-on-5 chances, the Bruins are top 10 in the, and this is all per 60 minutes. So it's, rate stats, same for everyone. Bruins are top 10 in shot attempts, shots on goal, expected goals, scoring chances, and high danger chances at 5-on-5. Like, if this team's going to be a top 10 5-on-5 offense, right now, like, their shooting percentage is a little low. Like, their shooting percentage is middle of the pack. If they're going to create chances like that, I think that's fine. Like, that's solid. That's exactly where you need to be. You don't have to be first in the NHL in 5-on-5 offense, because you should have the defense and goaltending. And we all knew coming into the year, you're going to need special teams. Their penalty kill has been there all season pretty much. You nailed it. Like, the power play has to get going. The talent level is there in the power play. There's only a couple teams, maybe 4 or 5, that can trot out a more talented 5-man top unit than the Bruins can. But as we saw down the stretch last year, they went cold and struggled to kind of figure it out, get back on track. I thought they started this year slow. Then they had a stretch where it looked like they were starting to figure it out. I think they had like 3 power play goals in 2 or 3 games during the West Coast trip. And now it's slowed down again. I thought the one they had in the third period last night, which had they scored, would have extended the lead to 4-1 and really probably would have ended the game. That was with under 10 minutes left in regulation. That was actually a good-looking power play. They had some clean entries with speed. They were moving the puck. Pasternak had a one-timer that just about beat Gibson, but catches him right under the armpit. Hampus Lindholm had a drive to the net. There was like another scramble in front. But ultimately they end up with, without the goal there. So, I think if the power play picks it up and looks like that more consistently, they're going to score more. And then you're going to be looking at a really solid offensive team. So there's always stuff to work on 5-on-5 for sure. Like you're never truly satisfied, but they've been pretty solid so far.
Yeah, and it's deceiving because the first couple of games of the year, I think heading into that West Coast trip, like I think they had like 2 even strength goals like the first couple of games, 2 or 3 games, whatever. But it was the power play that was kind of, igniting them to some of those early victories. And so in your mind, again, we're only 7 games into the year, right? So it's easy to think back to those first couple of games and be like, yeah, it was 5-on-5 was a slow start, but the power play was clicking a little bit earlier on. But as the last 5 games have kind of progressed now, it's kind of flipped a little bit. So yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, Colorado, maybe the Rangers, certainly
Edmonton, obviously.
Certainly Edmonton. I mean, yeah, they're cream of the crop. So those 3, I mean, Dallas is pretty good.
Yeah, arguably Vegas. I mean, probably
Vegas.
fairly comparable.
Yeah, but these are all top teams in the league, right? And yeah, like the Bruins. I mean, look, when you have a 60 plus goal scorer in David Pasternak, you have a top. I mean, it's subjective, but definitely a top 10 defenseman in the NHL, but top 5 in Charlie McAvoy. If you're talking all around player, one around there, he needs to improve his game offensively. I think that's everybody knows that. He's great defensively. He plays with snarl. But when he was at BU, and look, I understand it's college hockey and not the NHL, but when he was at BU, he certainly had a little bit more of playmaking to his game on the power play, and he kind of ran that power play there. Well, I know Matt Grzelcyk was there, but I think when Grzelcyk graduated, McAvoy kind of took over that first unit. But in any event, that's so long ago. We've seen McAvoy do it at the NHL level too. He needs to do it more consistently. He's got to shoot the puck more, and he just has to spearhead that power play at the top of the umbrella. Marchand, obviously, he's a top player in this league. So yeah, the talent's there. Van Riemsdyk is the premier net front guy in the power play. And Zacha still needs to prove himself a little bit, obviously, but yeah, the talent's there. So it has to pick up. I'm sure it will. I don't want to go too far without you having a rebuttal on that, Scott, but there was a player I wanted to bring up as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on McAvoy. And look, McAvoy had 3 assists last night. So, if we're talking about his offense, like
right.
Overall, that was a really solid game. He's actually now top 5 among defensemen in assists this season. He's up to 6. And they did score a power play goal. It was a little bit of a fluky one, right? Like Pasternak basically whiffs on a one-timer, but heals it perfectly for Charlie Coyle to tap in. And they're clearly still trying to figure some things out, though. McAvoy, yes, shooting more. Also, I feel like they still haven't totally gotten used to Zacha being in the bumper instead of Bergeron. And, I was at morning skate yesterday, and they don't do it. You can't do like a ton of practice at morning skate, but one thing they were focusing on yesterday was the power play. And specifically, like in practice, you could see them running a lot through Zacha, like quick passes in and then out in a different direction. And you could tell like they're trying to get a better handle on like how it works with him there and the plays they can run. And obviously it's different in a game. Everything's moving faster. You're facing a different defense other than your teammates in practice. So that's still going to take some time. I think it was interesting last night. We saw Coyle get some net front time with the top power play unit. And part of that is, if it's Van Riemsdyk out there, Zacha's your only faceoff guy. He's the only center on the top unit. Whereas if Coyle's out there, you can use him on faceoffs as well. Especially depending on where the draw is and what kind of play you're trying to set up. Because obviously he's a righty versus Zacha, a lefty. And you actually did that last power play I was talking about. You actually did see that cost them to start. They ended up having a good power play anyways, but they started with their regular top unit with Van Riemsdyk out there. Zacha got kicked out of the faceoff dot. It ends up being Van Riemsdyk who takes it, who's not a center, not a faceoff guy, and he loses it, and the Ducks get that immediate clear that just kills 20 seconds right off the bat. So that's also going to be something to watch is, how much they want to mix Coyle in, whether it's because they just think, he gives a different look than JVR does at the net front, or if it is because of the faceoffs.
Has Pavel Zacha's game in general through the first month of the season so far, has it raised any questions for you about if he actually can be a top two center point production wise? Because again, last year we mentioned his 58 points, I believe, but a lot of that was obviously on the wing with Krejci as the center. So as a centerman, and it's so early, dare I say, way too early to even ask this question. But I'm just asking through, the first month of the season so far. He seems to be playing fine, but there are some players where they play well, but the points don't follow. Do we think it's potential that he could be one of those players, or is it just one of those, it's a matter of time before the points start piling for him?
Well, I think the points are going to come for him because I think he's been playing pretty good hockey. Obviously, right now he's on a very talented line with Pastrnak and Marchand. And I see him, for the most part, doing enough, making plays to help create offense that I think the points are almost inevitably going to follow. But I guess we can't fully assume that yet, right? Like he's had one really good offensive season last year, 58 points, but that was 24 more than he had in any season before that. And I know he wasn't in as good of a situation, but there are players you look around the league who have a 1 year spike and then kind of go back to what they were before. So we can't totally rule that out that, hey, maybe we look back and last year was his spike and he never got back there. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to be okay. But, it is still early. So we have to actually see it first.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I like Pavel Zacha. It's I know he's capable of scoring in this league. He did it last year, like we talked about. As a center iceman, it's a bit of a different question. So I think he's going to be fine. He's certainly I think he's at the very least a number 2 center in this league. And that's, the way Matt Potter's been playing, that's really what they'll probably need him to be long-term. And that's probably a good segue. And Scott, going to be a bit of a shorter episode today because you have to head over to practice. Just
one quick last thing on Zacha. I definitely do want to see him shoot more. Right now he has 11 shots on goal through 7 games. That's got to go up. Thinking especially last night, he's on a breakaway and he slows down and passes over to Pastrnak, trailing the play, which on the one hand, it's okay, I get it. David Pastrnak's a 60 goal scorer and you want to put the puck on his stick, but you're on a breakaway. I want to see Pavel Zacha attack aggressively and try to score there. It just seemed like a play where it was he had his mind made up beforehand that he's trying to get to Pastrnak, and he's got to be more aggressive and more selfish in that situation, especially, but also in other situations.
Yeah, and he knows it on paper because you asked him about that on the podcast at one point,
Yep.
and going into the season, he mentioned that you actually alluded to the fact like when you have somebody like that in your wing, it's easy to defer to them. So he knows that, but knowing it and acting upon that in NHL game situations is a different story. So yeah, he has to improve on that. Quickly, Scott, let's do who's up, who's down. I'll go first with who's up, and I'm going to speak for both of us here. Then I'll just say the obvious. I mean, Matt Patra's up. He's got, he's fifth on the team in scoring, 5 points in his first 7 NHL games, 3 goals, 2 assists, +4, 1 game-winning goal. And last night against Anaheim, I mean, Scott, that puck possession, puck protection, edge work, and vision on that what ended up becoming a Matt Grzelcyk goal wasn't just like, oh, he's like one of the most dynamic skaters it looks like on the Bruins. Like that was like elite NHL edge work, like the way he stops and keeps going, like it looks like he's changing direction. I mean, go back and watch that play, listeners, if you didn't see it. But or you did see it, but you want to watch it again. And the edge work is amazing there, Scott, and his vision.
Yeah, it's Marchand-esque at times when he gets twisting and turning and cutting back. It's really hard for a defender to keep up with that and to get on top of him. He's so good at creating that separation in tight spaces. So yeah, clearly up, and now through 7 games of this 9-game sample, and I think we all agree he's not going anywhere. But yeah, just game after game, it's even if he goes through a stretch where he's quiet for a period or a few shifts, all it takes is like that one chance with the puck on his stick for him to do something, and that's like for a Bruins team that's lost so much offense. Like that's what you need. You need guys who can make things happen with just one chance with the puck on their stick. Like, yeah, the Bruins want to be this offensive, grinding, puck possession style, score some dirty goals, and that's great. They do need to be that, but you also need creative offensive playmakers who can make things happen out of the blue. And Matt Patra, already at 19 years old, is proving to be that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just picturing him at 25. I mean, the way he's 19. Is very impressive. Do we have another up, Scott, or do we have a couple downs we just want to get to?
Quickly, I mean, I'd say David Pastrnak, who scores again on Thursday and is up to 6 goals now, right back among the league leaders. 4 assists as well. So 10 points through 7 games. He's a +6. Like, I mentioned that failed clear, and I know there's certain people who are just going to pounce on that and ignore everything else. But not surprising, obviously, at all that Pasternak's off to a good start. But the Bruins need it. Like they need their stars to be stars, and he has been so far.
Agreed. So quickly on a down, I'll go first. And again, points aren't everything at all, but I think this is just a microcosm of the whole picture so far this year. Jesper Boquist, 1 game played, 0 points. Patrick Brown, 4 games played, 0 points. Jacob Lauko, 6 games played, 0 points. Hampus Lindholm, 7 games played, 0 points, -1. I only listed the players above him because those are the only 4 players in the Bruins yet to register a point, and clearly one of them sticks out much more than the others. Look, having no points for the first 7 games of the season as a defenseman, it's not like it's the end of the world. Again, I know he's a defenseman, not a forward. Granted, Hampus Lindholm does provide offense. I just think that he just hasn't been involved nearly enough. And I think that the 0 points -1 in 7 games kind of just like illustrates that from a quick snapshot perspective. It hasn't been all bad. He's had his moments, but he has not been the player they need him to be on what we believe to be a team that's going to pride themselves on structure and defense. Again, he's been okay at times, but he's supposed to be one of their leaders, one of their best players. And through the first month of the season thus far, he has not been that player for them.
Yeah, and I've been the Lindholm defender even when the points aren't there, and I do still think for the most part, especially him and Carla together, like they've been a solid pairing. They're not giving up a lot. They're still in as a pairing, they're in the plus on the season in terms of they've been on the ice more goals for than against. But yeah, Hampus Lindholm should be a player who's doing more than defending well and, coming out slightly above 50%. Like, at some point you need the offense, and you combine these 7 games, you look back at the playoffs where he had 0 points, and it's got to change. I think you've seen flashes of him getting involved offensively, pinching in. I mentioned, the power play chance he had, driving hard to the net, but yeah, 0 points through 7 games just isn't, like, that's not acceptable for him. No matter what the other parts of his game are, you need the Bruins need more offense from the back end period, and he's a big part of that. We know he's capable of a lot more than this. So you mentioned my down. You just mentioned some of these guys when you were listing it off, but I would say the fourth line for a couple of reasons. One, the main one being their 2/3 of the line is injured. Milan Lucic is now out for 2 weeks, or at least 2 weeks. Jim Montgomery said multiple weeks. Jacob Lauko, in addition to the cut from the skate, actually suffered a facial fracture as well. So he's out at least a week. He's going to be reevaluated next week. So you get Jesper Boquist and Patrick Brown in there. And, I didn't think they were bad or really even noticeable in any way until Patrick Brown takes a late penalty for holding that the Bruins technically get the kill, but the Ducks score the goal to cut it to 3-2 right after the power play expires. So that was costly. They're just kind of piecing this together with glue right now. Like, so it's going to be hard to judge for a while, but I also wonder, like, do you sign Danton Heinen at some point? It's bizarre to me that, like, this is still hanging out there. He took morning skate yesterday on the fourth line. And usually how you line up in morning skate is how you line up for a game. But the day goes on and still no deal, and he doesn't play Thursday. So we'll see if something happens there. But, at some point, like you mentioned all those guys who have zeros on the season. Johnny Beecher had a great chance for his first NHL goal Thursday night, and a wide open net on a shorthanded chance, and he hit the post. But, at some point, like, you got to get some offense from your fourth line again. Like, similar with Hampus, you expect more from Hampus Lindholm, obviously, but it's, at some point, just being, like, solid defensively or whatever isn't good enough. Like, everyone's got to pitch in offensively, and so far the Bruins have not gotten much out of their fourth line.
All right, Scott, let's get you to Warriors so you can get to practice. We have a fun one tomorrow night, Bruins and Red Wings at the Garden. Both teams off to a great start. Detroit in particular, their offense is on fire. So original 6 matchup, the Bruins will be wearing those special third jerseys this year, which are pretty beautiful. So that'll be a nice jersey matchup, Scott. And yeah, so thank you all for listening. We will talk very soon.